welcome to the Hyper Voice. I am your host, Steven Morioka, and today we have quite a show for you. But first, I should probably introduce my friends I'm working with today. As always, we are joined by the lovely Alex Underhill.
Hello, how's it going?
And our guest for today, a VGC veteran, Kamaal Harris.
Hey guys, pleasure to be here.
Now, Kamaal is a 4-time Worlds competitor, and fun fact for everyone out there, and maybe Kamaal also knows this too, but you've qualified for all the Worlds that were held on the west coast of North America.
Yes, I have. That's why I'm looking especially forward to Anaheim. Easy money.
Yeah, I mean, especially since it hopefully fall in that pattern that should be pretty locked up for you. So, for reference, those previous ones were San Diego, Vancouver, and San Francisco.
San Diego twice.
Yeah, that's right. San Diego twice. But this show today is basically going to be a 2016 season and circuit review. We're going to go over all that stuff from the past year. But before we go into some good, nice details about that, we just wanted to give a quick plug-in and primer to the World Cup of VGC. And Alex, you're actually competing in it this year. And please tell everyone who's listening, what it is, what it's about, and everything else about it.
So, Kamaal and I are actually both playing for the United States Central team. US was split into 3 regions. And so, it's a tournament essentially to be held after Worlds, kind of to showcase like the best of the best in each country. And it's going to be between 16 regions since US was split, and a couple of other countries that don't have such large VGC scenes, they were grouped together to make sure that they had enough players. And so of those 16 teams, they're divided into 4 pools where they'll be playing 8 players each week against each other of their roster of 12, up to 12. It could be less if they wanted to. I believe 1 or 2 of the teams have less than 12 players so far. But every week you play 8 players, so there are ties. US Central played against the United Kingdom for their first week, and we tied 4-4 against them. And the formats, it's not all VGC 2016, not all the current format. They actually play formats from 2016 all the way down to 2013. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's going to be run over the course of a couple of weeks. The top 2 in each pool will advance on to, I believe, a bracket stage. I don't think there's going to be more pools from there. And then they'll just play elimination matches all the way up until finals. So yeah, that's going to be really cool. It's just finished its first week. Week 2 is starting now, and we'll have to see where it goes.
So I just want to quickly apologize for not knowing Kamaal was on US Central. It shows how much I've know about it and been following it.
Yeah, I'm on there too.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry.
Now, aside from my team, I'll be honest, I'm totally a traitor to the US. I'm rooting for Team Japan, but
You're rooting for Team Japan?
Rooting for Team Japan. I love their whole team.
Oh man.
But they just came off a 5-3 loss to Italy last week, and now they're up against a tough battle against East Asia, which is also coming off a dominant performance against Brazil in the qualifying round. So they've got a bit of a schedule ahead of them. Hope they can pull it out.
I heard that Japan actually has a really stacked roster for this. Could you confirm that, Kamaal?
Oh yeah, they've got Penguin playing 2013 this week. I really want to see that match. BIDC is doing 2014, I believe, and they've got Gebebo and Moriyama in this week, too.
Very cool.
A whole bunch of matches I'm really looking forward to watching the videos of after.
Very nice. Would you guys call Japan a favorite to win this?
I sure hope they would be. I want them to win.
I actually haven't taken the time to analyze all the rosters, but I know that just in general, like when you're going to Worlds or any other large tournament, I guess Worlds is the only tournament that involves multiple countries like that, at least involves Japan and another country. Japan is always a threat to be reckoned with. It's one that a lot of people fear playing and stuff like that.
But then, if they go up against US Central, they're going to get stomped. So,
Oh yeah, definitely. Look out for us. I don't know when we're gonna play them, but we're gonna take it all. US Central, there's no messing with us. But I guess that's pretty much all there is to say about World Cup, and I guess now we can move on to talking about the tournament structure of the whole year. That's kind of what this whole episode's about, so let's move on to discussing that.
Okay, excellent. Good luck to everyone playing in the World Cup. Enjoy watching the matches, enjoy playing, have fun with it. Gives a lot of people something to do before Sun and Moon come out. But heading into the season, heading into this rest of the show, again, we're just talking about the things that we liked that changed during the course of the season, and we're gonna try and work through some things that could still use improvement heading into the new one. So, what I wanted to briefly do is just do a quick season timeline overview, and then we're going to head into all the things we liked and didn't like from the season. So, last season started after Worlds ended in 2015, after Boston, and basically after Worlds, we got the CP distribution, and initially this was not well taken by the community, just because I think first place, the values were still pretty much the same and stuff, and then everything under that was an exponential decay. But there was enough outrage, and we made some well-reasoned complaints, and that was fixed, so that was a good thing. We'll get into that a little more if we want to. But moving on, October had fall regionals using the 2015 format. November, we did officially get the announcement for what the CP bar qualification level was to make it to Worlds. And it was announced prior to that in September-ish that there would be a CP bar for VGC. So that was great. And then December, we had the 2016 format announced. So you guys have any initial thoughts for that first quarter of the season? First third of the season?
Yeah, the first the first part of the season, the 2015 part, that was notable, unfortunately notable compared to this season for the fact that those are the times when TPCI would actually communicate with the community and listen to our inputs, and we could actually see that. Like, we don't really get that so much now, and mostly deservedly with all the complaints about Smeargle in recent months.
That's funny that you bring that up. There was that one little teaser about how they were going to examine Smeargle and how they didn't do anything about that, but they did hear our raised complaints about the CP bar or the CP payouts. I actually can't even remember the CP payouts. I actually forgot about that change, but I remember that they initially were really awful. Wasn't it very stacked so that first place got a ton and then everything else was just
exactly
poor? It was win or bust, essentially.
Exactly, yeah.
And especially didn't gel well with Best of One, which was standard for regionals at the time. Which is another thing I like about now is the introduction of Best of Three for regionals.
Oh, hold on. Spoilers, man. We're getting there. We're not there yet. But yeah, we will be just talking about the Best of Three change later. But just between Worlds ending and the new format announced, there was a pretty good amount of changes. Obviously, the biggest one was the bar, I think. The bar being announced, that's a first for VGC. And it just led a lot of people to having a bit more security in obtaining a Worlds invite.
Yeah, for sure.
But after all those events occurred, we head straight into the new year, 2016 January, where the actual format begins for the calendar year. It was nice. We also got special rules on Battle Spot to practice. Premier Challenges, when those started, back in 2015, flat rules were usable for that format, and they would let you select 4 and it would go to the auto confirm button kind of thing. But for any non-tethered events where you don't lock your battle box, you had to use normal rules, and that could have been iffy, and the timer wasn't set like that was on Battle Spot either.
Well, I think what you failed to mention, Stephen, was that the reason that we had to move from flat rules to normal rules was the introduction of legendaries.
Ah, yes, the restricteds.
Yeah, the restricteds just wouldn't work with flat rules because flat rules automatically banned them. And so we had to play with normal rules, which led to a couple of issues. A lot of things that like the TO can check manually, but I remember at the beginning of the season we were worried because normal rules, I believe, doesn't check for species clause. I'm not positive on that one though, but I know that it doesn't check item clause. It doesn't check if you have multiple of the same item on your team. And then, yeah, like you mentioned, you could accidentally bring 3 Pokemon or 5 Pokemon or 6 Pokemon because the game didn't auto-confirm after you had selected 4. And so this also led to the issue of people maybe accidentally bringing 3 Pokemon and being like, oh, like, I didn't mean to bring those 3 Pokemon. I meant to pick a 4th and it didn't work. Can we restart? And then from there, you've already seen what your opponent plans to lead, and it could just lead to a lot of unfair play. And then the timer's also another interesting thing. I believe they announced that TOs could enforce timer at their own discretion.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it was a 20-minute cutoff, and it led to some awkward positions where you didn't know when you could afford to timer stall because the actual turn timer was still 99 seconds. So a lot of taking stuff on faith in the lower level tournaments.
I remember at the PC level, I used to joke that they enforced the 20-minute timer rule because of me and Kamaal playing against each other. Because every time that Kamaal and I played at a PC, we would take that like full 90 seconds for turns just to analyze every move, and like our best of 3 sets and cut would take like an hour plus, it felt like, and like it was ridiculous. And that's what I kept joking with my TO, is that they were doing it because of us too.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I mean, it's because you guys were thinking through your turns, not like necessarily timer stalling.
No, because timer wasn't a factor, so we just liked to get as much practice in and think about all our moves completely through.
Yeah, I always like it when I'm not working against the timer as well as the opponent. But then, like, it makes certain matches, like me versus Alex or me versus Save Attack, just drag on forever.
Mm-hmm.
But them cracking down on that, I can understand why.
Perfectly reasonable for TOs to do that. Made sense, but we can get into this a bit more later. Let's just blast through the rest of this timeline so we can start talking about the good stuff. In February, we had the Winter Regionals set. They were all held as single game Swiss until, like, at the end of the month, it was announced by Alpha Zealot that... Is it Alpha Zealot or Alpha Zealot?
Chris Brown.
I call him Alpha Zealot.
Yeah, I like the username better, too.
Yeah, sure.
But it was announced by him that, hey, all tournaments can be held as best 2 out of 3 at the TO's discretion. So that was very nice from March onward. And prior to that announcement, Oregon, the Oregon Regional in the winter was held using that format as best of 3. And that was a great positive change heading toward the rest of the season.
Except that it was a surprise to the players at Oregon Regionals.
Yeah, that was interesting for them. I mean, I'm sure they weren't complaining.
Yeah, it depends on how you played it, because some people might just be trying to get into cut with all their like silly gimmicks, like we saw. Like I'm reminded of 2015 when we had mostly best of 1 regionals. Like there was this one team with like Serperior and Charizard X that was like crazy in Europe. Oh, and then like Keonsby, his team with the Heliolisk and the Mega Sceptile. Those teams, I think, really played on best of 1, I think. And like while they were still teams that could function in a best of 3, they especially functioned in a best of 1 where people didn't have the experience against Pokemon like that. So I think that having surprise best of 3 can be negative, but in general, I prefer best of 3.
I guess the other problem with that is for that particular regional cycle, there are a few people who either went to Florida regionals or didn't go to regionals at all, not expecting Oregon to be best of 3, and finding out the day of was a pretty unpleasant surprise.
Yeah, for that reason, and just the way you prepare for a tournament, because preparing for for single game versus best of 3, it can be a big difference.
Oh yes, the practice element is a whole different aspect too.
Yeah, it definitely changes the way you want to game plan for games, because your team has to be a little more 3-dimensional. It's like after game 1, then you have to decide, like, do you stick with the same thing game 2 or switch it up?
Mm-hmm.
If you led bad, anticipating the wrong lead, do you stay with it and expect them to switch? It's a whole different mind game there. That's just not there in single game matches.
Yes, and scouting for information. Do you just play to show all your tricks in one game just to ensure that one win, or do you hide some things and try to get the win without revealing all your tricks so that in game 2 you can save some of those? But I'd say moving forward, March and April, there wasn't anything too huge, but we did have mid-seasons, which I guess we could have talked about. I don't know when they announced mid-seasons. Do you guys have an idea, Steven?
I think that was like very early season, so back in the September, October.
And so we expected mid-seasons to be these like really big kind of prestigious tournaments based on the number of points that they were awarded, and they were in the same best finish limit as regionals. But so the earlier ones were pretty large. People were showing up to them trying to win this large amount of CP, or at least fair chunk of CP. But they actually, towards the end, ended up being pretty small, but still paying out a large amount.
Yeah, and the payout from mid-season showdowns is something we'll get into a bit later. We'll just after April happened, we had nationals held basically worldwide from May to July. A bunch of them were streamed by TPCI, and a bunch of them were streamed just by the grassroots organizers. So that was very nice. The Asia Pacific and Latin America had them streamed. I think Australia did too. Japan had theirs streamed. All of Europe's 3 main ones were as well. The United States was too. That wasn't a surprise really. But one of the big changes at US Nationals was allowing all X2s to advance to not just necessarily the next stage of the tournament, but we've never had it where all X2s advance into the bracket from a day 2 Swiss before.
Yeah, of course I especially like that because I've historically gone X2 repeatedly and always just been out of the cut. So the extra security from making if you go X2 is something I really enjoy. And this season I did wind up following through on that by going X2 to make it through to day 2, and going X2 to make it through day 1 Worlds, continuing the streak, I guess.
And it was something that wasn't available to me last year at U.S. Nationals when I made it into the top 8 bracket. I had to win my last match. I was at 4-1, and I wanted to win my last match to ensure that I made it into the top cut, the top 8, because if I made it in at 4-2, I wasn't guaranteed to play in that top cut bracket. Fortunately enough, I was able to win that one, make it to 5-1, and make it into the top 8 bracket. But had I lost that, it would have been a lot more nerve-wracking knowing that Resistance could end up taking me out of the top cut.
Yeah, it's nice we've started to slowly factor Resistance out of the equation for our tournaments, but it still exists, and we'll get into that too, because that's a pretty important topic. Kamaal's been on the wrong end of that so many times just in recent years.
Yeah, that was a big part of my 2015 season where I would just go 7-2 or 6-2 at every single regional and just wind up like in the at St. Louis. I went 7-2 and bubbled out on opponents in percentage for top 32 at 17th. That one was it 18th? Yeah, 18th because Aaron was 17th. I think. I can't remember.
St. Louis, I believe you got 17th.
Something like that.
I remember because Cybertron tweeted, I think, out a picture, and he was like, "I got 18th. I'm so sad," or something like that.
Right.
And then I saw it, and I'm like, "Oh no!" But Kamaal got 17th, and here I was at home, just like, of course, Kamaal got bubbled out 17th. Yeah, 17th and 9th is very familiar for you, Kamaal.
Oh yeah.
Just unfortunate occurrences, and that Nationals last year, 2015, you needed to get top 64 to qualify for Worlds, and we were still under the top X system to make it in. And I think you got like a few slots right under that.
Yeah, I was 66 when I hit top 64, and it was a case where like between 64th and 66 all had the same opponents win percentage, so it came down to opponents win percentage again.
Mm-hmm.
It's always that extra value that works against me. I don't know.
Yeah, just brutal.
Yeah.
But after Nationals occurred, we're just gonna wrap up this last month of the season. In August, we had Worlds, and that replicated the U.S. Nationals tournament structure. I thought that was amazing. It's probably the most solid one we've ever had, ever. And I would love to see that in the future. Another cool thing was that once you got your 6th win from day 1 of Worlds, because there were 8 rounds and you need to go at least X2. Once you got your 6th win, they removed you from the tournament to prevent any, silly shenanigans with people dropping to their friends if they played each other later. But both of you, Alex, you finished before the rounds ended at Worlds, right?
I did. I made it to 6-1, so I had 1 loss in the 5th round, but I did make it out of the tournament earlier than I had to, or than it could have gone. So I was happy to not win when I was like on the edge of being knocked out of the tournament. I won, and then I was just taken out of the tournament. That was a lot more relieving.
And I think Kamaal was in that grudge match. Is that right?
Yeah, I was 5-2 and had to win my last round to win. And they did all the last rounds on stream, which I liked.
Yes, I remember watching that, and that was intense.
Because like I always tend to go down in matches early in the tournament, so I never really wind up on stream. In fact, Day 1 Worlds is my first time being on stream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it was about time.
Yeah, after playing for so many years.
Yeah.
Yeah, just such a good, consistent player, and they just never had you on before. Still kind of baffling.
And being in the Midwest, I've actually been in most of the tournaments where it was possible to be on the official stream, and it just never happened until that one time.
That is a good point. Midwest does have the most stream privilege. That's normally where TPCI sends their stream team and to the regionals that they stream. So, yeah, it's kind of funny that it worked out that way. It's kind of just the same way that you get bubbled. Nice luck.
Yep.
Yeah, we have really good TOs, and there's bias for holding the streams here.
Mm-hmm.
But Worlds happened, we saw Wolf Glick take the championship. Let's just touch on this briefly. Were you guys surprised at all that he won?
It was kind of crazy to see him up there because it almost felt like too perfect. Like when people make their Worlds predictions, and people probably wouldn't pick Wolf Glick just because that's someone that you would expect to win it all, and it almost doesn't always work out that way unless you're betting on Ray Rizzo. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy that Wolf is a player you expect to win Worlds, and he actually made it all the way up there. It's almost like storybook.
I'm surprised he won with the team he won with, because if you think about it, non-Sash Raichu, no HPV, Mega Gengar, those are the kinds of mods you wouldn't expect Wolf to be using if he had a choice. It's like there's using your favorites to win Worlds, and there's using what Wolf did. He really had to go far out of his comfort zone to make that work, and I think that's actually really impressive.
Yeah, I definitely think that wasn't a team that we expected from Wolf, because a lot of people had just knocked off Ray Ogre towards the beginning/middle of the season. They were like, well, this team is just not good enough. People know how to play around it now. We've seen it, and it's just not as strong as Big Six. So I guess people kind of just stopped exploring it.
Yeah, if he had a choice, he'd definitely be going with the more bulky team that's more likely to timer stall better. You wouldn't expect Ray Ogre coming from Wolf.
Yeah, I think it's more suitable to his play style, and he did win. It's not that big of a shock to me that he won. He's one of the best players in the world, and he kind of won it sooner than I thought he would. Just thought it would take him longer, but congratulations to him, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. Congratulations.
So that's pretty much the end of the season timeline. Another just quick fun fact is our show started last August, so obviously important to us. So that's cool. But what we're gonna do is just kind of go over topics of the stuff we liked, stuff we didn't like, and why don't we just start with the CP payout for the season? Like, did you guys like the values? And we can get into here as well the midseason showdowns payout as well, and we can factor in how many points it took to qualify for everyone.
Well, I think the biggest one that kind of jumps out to people is just mid-seasons, like I was mentioning earlier. Mid-seasons were a decent idea in theory with their payout. I think their payout level could have been alright if there were just fewer mid-season showdowns, because they had so many of them, and people just stopped traveling to all of them, so you would get mid-seasons with like 8 people, or just a bit over that, and it wasn't competitive enough to reward that amount of CP.
Yeah, mid-seasons definitely inflated increased the number of Worlds qualifiers from the U.S. And then I guess there's also the fact that the CP bar from Latin America was just really low in general, so we had a lot of people coming from there qualifying for Worlds also. Then there's other factors like the general decrease of players playing in the season overall. So more points went to a smaller number of dedicated players. So you had more points just going to a bigger number of people than would be expected just from the start of the season.
I think another change that at least definitely hits home for me is the increase in championship point payout and nationals as it goes down, because getting into the top 8 guaranteed you a Worlds invite this year. And for those of you that don't know, I made it into the top cut of 2015's U.S. Nationals. But before that, I had accomplished nothing, so I did not get enough CP to get a Worlds invite despite making it to the top 8 of Nationals. But this year, with the bar, they made it so that getting into the top 16 was actually enough to just guarantee yourself a Worlds invite.
Right, so I kind of want to address, two things you guys said there. Is having too many mid-season showdowns a problem in terms of giving players an opportunity to play?
I think it would be less of a problem if there were more people, like I was implying. Because, you still have there's, if more people are playing and if more people are good at the game, I guess I should say, it's more points distributed more evenly.
I think that mid-seasons would be fine if, in a perfect world, we had more people going to them, like Kamaal mentioned, but we actually saw like a huge drop in attendance at these middle-level events. Like, we had some of the smallest regionals happening in, I believe, the spring, where there are like some like regionals that were less than 100 people, which was kind of ridiculous, and then these mid-seasons were very small. And I think it kind of worked out that way because not just because the format was a little less popular this year, but just because of the mid-season showdowns and because of the payouts of some of these events with the bar. People were earning their Worlds invites before they even attended spring regionals. I think I did. I believe I had earned my Worlds invite before I even had to attend a spring regional. And so that probably helped hurt or helped, whichever way you look at it, but it hurt the regional attendance, and so a lot less people ended up going.
Yeah, I think all 3 of us were qualified prior to that, or prior to spring regionals. And, one solution with the mid-season showdowns is, yes, we could have less of them, and what that would do is it would stop spreading attendance thin across all of those events, and you'll get more competition, more, generally more higher quality of play. And in terms of the points, how would you guys want to adjust that? Like, do you like the payouts the mid-season showdowns provide? Do you think it should be lower? Or do you think that should change depending on if the bar changes for next season?
So what I had in mind for a bar from the beginning was enough so that if you maxed out on PCs, got top 16 in all 3 regionals, and then had a sort of solid showing at nationals, that would be the minimum to get into Worlds. Compared to that, I thought the bar for 2016 was really just a little too lax.
So like Kamaal was saying, qualifying for Worlds wasn't as difficult as it has been in past years. And, that's just because the bar was low in general worldwide. So all the different regions around the world had different levels to qualify. Specifically for the Masters division, seniors and juniors were all lower for the most part. But for Masters in the US and Canada, we needed just 350 points. Europe needed 275. Latin America needed 150. That was very low. Asia Pacific 200 and South Africa 400. So, but like Kamaal was saying, the championship point bar was, a kind of low. It was really easy to qualify for Worlds. So, for example, in Latin America, all you had to do was win 5 Premier Challenges, and you were in to day 1. For the US and Canada, all you really had to do was win 6 PCs and then just do, moderately okay at regionals. You didn't even have to go to nationals if you didn't feel like it or didn't want to or couldn't. In terms of the bar, we had a lot of people qualify for Worlds, and we don't necessarily know if that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think you had some really interesting statistics down here, Stephen, mentioning the number of players, first of all, that qualified for Worlds, and then what those numbers would be if we changed the bar.
Yeah, so I went through all the points lists in the regions from Pokemon, and from the regions that use championship points, we had a total of 829 actually qualify for day 1. Probably I think less than half of that actually showed up to Worlds, but very high numbers.
And then you showed that if we increased the bar by 50 CP for every region, I believe, then we would have 623 total qualifying players for Worlds. And then if we increased it by 100 in all those respective regions, we would have 496 total players qualified for Worlds. So with 496 total qualified players, I'm not sure, but since you guys have been to multiple Worlds in the past, how many players were invited from all regions all over to Worlds for VGC? How many players are typically invited?
Usually for, up until 2015, like 2014 and before, usually it'd be enough for 6 rounds of Worlds, which would be 64 or less.
So 64 total players in day 1?
Oh, this was before there was a day 1 and a day 2. But for
yes, you're right. Gotcha.
But for VGC 15, it was enough for another 6-round tournament in day 1.
Yes, it was. I remember that. So, yeah, significantly less. If we played all 400 of our players without splitting them into flights, I don't even know how many rounds we would reach. Probably, well, it's the same about as nationals, so yeah, it would be 9 rounds, because that's about what... Actually, I believe day 1 and nationals weren't... U.S. nationals, that is, weren't too far apart, attendance-wise.
Right.
Which sounds kind of crazy, considering how U.S. nationals is an open event, and Worlds is an invite-only one. And then from there, we split our tournament in half into 2 flights, and we still had more rounds than any previous year for a day 1. At least, I mean, while there was day 1, and then in previous years, while they didn't have day 1, day 2, they still had Swiss, right?
Yeah, it was
at least post 2011. I don't know how it worked in 2011 Worlds.
2011 Worlds was Swiss every year since 2008, so 2009 and after, those are all Swiss.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was just
okay.
The regional and national level that weren't always Swiss. Like for 2010 and 2011 regionals, those were best of 1, but Worlds was still Swiss then.
Best of 1 and single elimination.
Yeah, rough times back then.
Yep, pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, we've come a long way since that, at least. That is definitely a big change.
Yeah.
Baby steps moving forward. But in terms of the bar, did you guys actually think it was too easy to qualify?
Yes. I would, My overall statement is yes. I definitely think it was too easy to qualify this year, and when I saw people discussing, like, when they announced that we were going to have a bar, they, like, I was talking with friends, and they were talking about what the bar was going to be, like, oh, it's going to be 400 or 450 or maybe even 500, like, if we want to have, like, somewhat close to the amount of invites that we had last year, and then they went with 350, which was below, like, even the lowest guess they had, and so that just, I think it ended up inviting way too many people.
Yeah, I also think it was it was a little too easy. You'd expect, like, for mid seasons that in order to qualify for Worlds exclusively through those, you have to have, like, just an exceptional mid season record, like first in all of them. Probably, but like we've had people like no one actually won all three mid seasons, I believe, this season. And it's like people qualifying exclusively through locals, through PCs and mid seasons to make it to Worlds. And it's like, I think it's going a little under what we expected the system to do. So yeah, I think next year they could certainly stand and tighten that up a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I also think it was a bit too easy to qualify. You know, just kind of a reference. I know a bunch of other people have experienced this too. In past years, you know, there was emotion when people qualified for Worlds. So, this is my own personal example. During the opening ceremony of the 2013 Worlds, I started tearing up just because it was so difficult to qualify back then, and that year too, that, you know, I was just, you know, overcome with happiness. You know, wow, I can't believe I actually made it, and now we're going to play at Worlds. And, you know, I didn't have any of that this year at all. Like, it just felt like, oh, I qualified. Cool. That wasn't that difficult.
You know, that makes me think of since this is my first year qualifying for Worlds, at the beginning, like, I had a good start before they had announced the bar, and I was like, I'm looking, like, alright if there's a bar. I should be able to get a World Championship event after the bar was announced, I guess. And so I wasn't, like, terribly excited for it. And I remember the event that I got my invite at was at a mid-season showdown where in the finals I played none other than Steven Morioka, and he beat me in finals, so I got second, but I think I earned it by just getting into the top 8. And it was just kind of like, wow, like, I got my Worlds invite, but, like, I still have so much of the season left. Like, I didn't even, like, it wasn't up until the last minute, which I thought was, like, in previous years, it was a lot more competitive. And while a bar is a good step in the right direction, it's just, at least a bar as low as this just doesn't lead to as much intense competition all the way until the end of the season.
One positive side out I want to point out to having so many people qualify for Worlds is that this year Worlds drew a lot more people that you wouldn't expect to show up there. Like, you got to meet a whole bunch of people from around the world that probably that you wouldn't really see otherwise if the bar would have been a little higher. And those people, like, I want to say they had fun. Like, they're going to want to come back. So, like, the competition is going to be a whole lot more intense for the next year. I should hope.
Yeah, I hope so too. But, you know, in general, the concept of the bar is a very good change. You know, with the instatement of it and whatever level it is you need to qualify, people can set realistic goals for themselves, whereas the buys for each respective region, top 8, 16, whatever it is, those competitive people can still vie for those top spots to try and just get straight to day 2 with the day 1 buy. So it provides options for everyone who wants to play.
That's a very good point, Steven. You have the safe route where you just are ensuring that you have a Worlds invite and that you can make it to the day 1, and then you have that competitive route competing for a day 2 invite as well as, like, paid trips and stuff like that. So, yeah, overall the bar is definitely the right way to go. We just need to increase it a little bit or just change other things. Like, I mean, obviously we keep talking about increasing the bar, but we could also do something else, like lower the CP payout of all the events. Something like that. There are different ways to go with it.
Yeah, there's different ways you could refine it.
Yeah, I think whatever ends up changing is that for the Continentals now, is what the Nationals will now be called, whatever the payout is either like top 16 or top 8 have to be that minimum level of qualifying. So whatever they do, like, that should be a, requirement.
Another really positive change that we saw this year, I think, was just, like you mentioned earlier with all the nationals, there was a huge increase in streaming.
Yeah, I definitely like the increased visibility. We had actual TPCI sponsored streams in Europe. That was a first for the circuit. So it was nice seeing the top players from Europe get their turn on the big stage. We also had normally Japan Nationals has a stream. Their quality was really bad this time though, but it was still nice to have them around, and the fact that they posted the teams afterwards, that was also really nice for visibility too, to make up for it.
Oh, there was that weird concept though, I guess, since it's related to tournament structure, how going into the top cut bracket of Japan Nationals, they knew each other's teams. That was a really weird and different aspect that I'm sure people didn't see coming.
Yeah, like the posting teams mid-tournament was probably not the play.
I hope that doesn't become a popular trend, at least for Japan, and definitely not worldwide, but I don't imagine it will be. I hope that, like, in Japan, they don't have to deal with that in future years, because that's just not something that you prepare for, especially spontaneously.
Yeah, that's high on the list, in addition to switching between seniors and masters finals mid-turn. That was another.
Oh, that was also messy.
That was terrible. You gotta feel bad for the players and the commentators alike for that one, because it was just nonsensical.
That was kind of crazy, and yeah, I feel like just having the teams displayed before finals, like, it just leads to way too many, like, mind games. And also, even if you, like, knew beforehand going into the tournament that teams were going to be posted when Top Cut happened, I feel like that would just be, like, such a weird aspect. You'd feel like you would need to build the perfect team. A team that, like, even if they know every single move and item, you could still win. That just sounds like the 20XX of VGC.
And there are a couple players in the top 8 that definitely did get shafted, like MBK. Like, he had a straight Big 16, like you would expect, but like the function of the team was like totally wild. It was like Trick Room Smeargle, and after Trick Room, the Smeargle would transform into the Groudon.
I loved that. That was so cool.
Yeah, so like he went 3-0 in the group stages, but he got 0-2 shutout in top 8 when people knew what the team did. So that unexpected change in the format really didn't help him at all.
No, it's just unfortunate they, published the teams really early. But otherwise, streaming gets our game out there. Lets all the other VGC players from around the world watch other regions for a change. And, it could also bring in more casuals who are just, randomly going through different stuff on Twitch. Just looking for something to watch. So streaming's good.
You mentioned how having all these different streams helps grow the game, and I think that I wanted to talk about in this episode 2 things that I think would be huge in helping grow the game for future seasons. One of them is that we need to, TPCI needs to advertise the tournament finder, because you see these events and you see, like, wow, it's cool, these people are playing Pokemon on stream, and it's like, well, how do I do this? How do I, do I have to go to nationals? Is that the only tournament all year? Or, is it only these regionals? Is there only one regional every time? Because they only stream one regional per fall, winter regional, and spring stuff like that. And so advertising the tournament finder would help people realize that there are these local tournaments, there are these PCs that people can go to, in these low-level events like mid-season showdowns, where they can start to hone their skills and start to just get more experience and practice in. And I just feel like enough people don't know about the tournament finder. Whenever I'm talking to someone that I know plays VGC, or the example that I have is my mom was like, hey, this one person said that they wanted to try going to these events. Do you know, could you give them information on how to go? And I just thought it was kind of not annoying, but sad that they have to reach out to me when it should just be really easy to find this stuff online. I think that would help grow the game a bit more.
Yeah, I've always had a problem with that, especially so because the finder they do have doesn't work well on mobile. So, like, even if I wanted to look up a tournament that I'm already going to, I can't really.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's not so easy to use, and like people don't realize that so you have to check and uncheck certain boxes to find what you're actually looking for. Like, what if you end up at a practice tournament instead of a sanctioned event that rewards CP, or what if you end up at a TCG event? That happened to me in the beginning. As I was getting into VGC and I really wanted to figure out something to go to, so I looked up the tournament finder once I found it, and I ended up at like a TCG league. And so I showed up with my DS, and they were like, you can hang out if you want, but we play the card game here. And I was like, wow, okay, so I guess I gotta find out where. And then the next thing I ended up finding was a VGC league, where it was just a bunch of, like, 9-year-olds playing the in-game. And so, in my experience, like, it was a rough start getting into VGC and finding the actual events where people compete at. So I think they need to advertise the tournament finder a bit more.
So you're talking about the website, right?
Yes, that tournament finder. Yep.
Okay, good, because this whole time I thought you were talking about the on stream, because I felt like the commentators did, they always try to advertise whenever they get a chance.
Oh, yeah. I think they do a good amount of advertising on the stream, but just in general, for the people that don't find those streams and stuff like that, if they could just, like, tell people where to find events and how to get to these real-life tournaments, it would be a huge change for VGC. And then another thing that I wanted to talk about, the other thing that I wanted to mention to help grow VGC was I think that they should somehow promote VGC in-game. And I think you mentioned this in one other part, maybe in a different podcast or something, but you think that we should have like a dedicated VGC ladder that like in-game is there all year round with the VGC format so that we can always practice. But having that in there and maybe having it labeled as like video game championship format or something like that would help people like, start looking up the right thing. Like, oh, I want to get good at the video game championship format because I see that one in my game. How do I do that? And they look up that stuff, and then they'll start finding all kinds of articles from Pokemon, and like they'll look up, eventually figure out how to get to the events and stuff like that. If they had plugs for VGC in the game, everyone who buys like Sun and Moon, if they did that in these new games, like it would help them at least get the idea in their head. They might not go because they're not interested, but it would help inspire those people that are looking for competition.
It would definitely help if there are more plugs, because after all these years, we still have like the dominant format being singles with like very little mention of doubles or VGC, maybe like in passing in the Battle Frontier, but that's about it. And it would definitely help if VGC took a more central role in the actual games.
Yeah, I've always wanted another double-centric game, but I think that's just a bit too much to ask. We've had Coliseum and XD, but I think it would be great if we had another double-centric game, just because there are so many moves in the game that like would be really fun to use as you play through, like Helping Hand or Quick Guard or something like that, and Fake Out. Those would be fun to use in a playthrough of a game, but we just don't have as many double battles as there are singles. And I mean, it's a comfortability pick. People play Pokemon for the single battles, but it'd be cool if we got another like doubles game. That would really help like get people into VGC, I think, too.
Or possibly even a singles mode and a doubles mode. Like you pick at the start which one you want to play. I'd be down for that.
That would be amazing.
That'd be really cool.
I would totally just play through a game in doubles. Like that would just be like the dream. That would be so cool.
Yeah, that gives people the option to take the traditional route of, a standard Pokemon game, or, kind of take that Coliseum or XD route where you do doubles the whole time. And that lets you use moves that you normally don't see during singles. So that'd be a really interesting option for the future.
But I guess in terms of like things we did see that like the other things that we saw this year that were positive changes, I cut off Kamaal discussing it earlier because we were going to discuss it later, but best 2 out of 3 is now becoming the standard. I think that's probably one of the biggest step forwards this season has made alongside the bar.
Yes, I'd have to agree. Playing 2 out of 3 instead of just a single game, for the most part, it's going to eliminate those luck factors like critical hits and flinches and full paralysis. And for the most part, it does allow the better player to come out on top. And it doesn't always necessarily have to be the better player in general, but just the player who played better during the entire match. So, you usually keep getting the right winners coming out of these tournaments.
Yeah, best of three definitely adds an extra layer of security in the event of in the case of just really rogue strategies. Like the more consistent strategy tends to come out on top a lot more with the change.
Yeah, with the introduction of best of three play, we'll definitely see like more consistent strategies, less gimmicks coming out on top. Like we won't see regional make it, or like a Lucario make it to nearly the finals of a regional. That was kind of crazy to see earlier in the 2016 season. I know somebody at Florida managed to think that they could bring a Lucario all the way to finals to try to challenge Wolf Glick, but they unfortunately just missed it in the top four. And thankfully, we didn't see that trend take off. Lucario kind of died there, but whoever managed to bring those kind of gimmicks to tournaments. Oh, they also had like HP Water, Hidden Power Water Salamence, I believe. Yeah. Thankfully, we don't have to see any more gimmicky strategies and players like that.
Safeguard Kang will live on.
Yeah, what's that?
Safeguard Kang will live on, just maybe not with Lumberry this time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember earlier. So, but anyway, let me back on my earlier note. If you guys didn't know, I was joking about Kamaal's Florida regional team, which actually did have Lucario and Hidden Power Water Salamence. And those are some weirder things that you don't normally see in VGC 2016, especially not now. Those trends didn't take off, but I don't know. Kamaal, did you bring those with the intention of using them in best of one, or did you think that they were solid in a best of three as well?
I brought them, I didn't really think towards best of one or best of three, really. It was mostly just to cover certain matchups. Like, I wanted to, since I didn't know how to really counter Mega Rayquaza, I just brought in Focus Sash Lucario to redirect the Dragon Ascent and Revenge KO with partner Pokemon.
Mm-hmm,
so it was just a...
And I believe you also had Feint on it, right?
Yeah. Feint was... because... Why did I have Feint? I didn't really have a good reason to use anything
Sash.
else. So, yes. Yeah, to pick off Sash.
Sash
yes.
stuff.
Oh, and also, since Close Combat isn't 100% KO on Mega Kangaskhan, Feint will pick up the knockout, even if they try to Sucker Punch afterwards.
Yes. Wow, I can't believe that. I can't believe Close Combat's not a guaranteed knockout on Kang. Neither was Close Combat from my Infernape, and when I used that, it's crazy how just well-rounded Mega Kangaskhan is, but let's not talk about Mega Kangaskhan. Mega Kangaskhan could have
scary. So scary.
We could have a whole episode on Mega Kangaskhan after 3 years of it dominating.
Yep.
Next episode, look forward for the Kangaskhan episode. No.
Oh no.
The Kangaskhan episode where we just spend the whole time just talking about Kangaskhan's success, its fall, its rises.
But I guess in summary, best of three, no complaints?
No complaints.
No complaints.
Definitely a great change.
Excellent. But in terms of other changes, how did you guys like the increase in prize support, such as cash money instead of just scholarships at nationals and worlds, and whatever some of the other changes were at regionals?
It was really a mixed bag because, you had trophies being taken out for second and fourth at American regionals and going to other countries with the newer VGC scene, and but in exchange, the prize support for most places American regionals just weren't that strong. You got a box. That was mostly it for top four box of the hat. The Nationals prize support, on the other hand, that definitely made up for it for the people who got that far. It's like they made the shift this season from scholarships to cash prizes. So now, even if you're old like me and you're not in school anymore, it's still worth something other than trying to do some strange exchanges with the scholarship.
Yeah, the trophies, it's nice that other regions get them. We don't want to be too greedy. They were missed here, I think. So, if those could get spread out, worldwide, that would be pretty nice for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But, regionals did have pretty poor prizes for the top finishers. And, I think Pokemon's already made an announcement that regionals are going to start handing out much better prizes. And that'll be something we'll have for next season.
Yeah, it's like now instead of nationals, we've got a whole bunch of slightly smaller nationals. It should be fun.
Yeah, we esports now.
Baby steps. We'll get there. But, in terms of prizes, probably beyond the bracket portions of tournaments, you have, we still have resistance playing a factor into final results of tournaments. So rather than your standings based on your record, you still have resistance affecting you. So Kamaal, this is a perfect example of you. So tell us what happened at nationals and why it was so upsetting for you.
Yeah, I would have needed to win my last round to guarantee top 16, but I lost. And even then, there are a few people with a 3-3 record that would still make top 16, but I happened to be 17th. So that put me at top 32. I fell out the top 8 for a day 2 qualification at the end of the season, and that kind of stung. But at that point, when you go down to X3, gotta stick to X2. I'm normally pretty good about that, but I was a little off that day, I guess.
Right. Even then, it still just didn't seem fair how some 3-3s will get, cash prize from nationals, and, your placing ended up knocking you out of day 2. It ultimately didn't matter since you qualified at Worlds through day 1, but, it did cost you the free airfare and hotel there.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of a thing where, because I didn't win money, I had to pay even more money. So it's next time, be a little more clutch, I should say.
Yeah, the way it seems, do you guys have an idea in mind that would completely remove the resistance factor, or are we just going to have to try to hope that prize support reaches to those people so that there are no people bubbling out on prize support? Either they make it X and 2s or above get the prize support, or X and 3s and above, however that works. Or is there a way that we can completely eliminate resistance even up in the even more than we already have?
It's a tricky topic because I've certainly railed against resistance deciding which X2s make it, but once you've got that covered, it's mostly a nicety whoever else makes it in. So it's I'm still really big on just making the format they came up with this time work, because that's really what I wanted all along, even if it didn't work out for me this one time.
Yeah, I do like the concept of, based on your record, that should be, ultimately the type of prize you should receive, not necessarily on resistance. What I do like about is that in terms of seeding for the top, players in the top cut, it does give you kind of a random seeding in terms of players with the same record. But other than that, I would rather see, if people are going X and 3 at certain tournaments, we shouldn't have that divide between 16 and 17 or 32nd and 33rd, just based on opponent's resistance. Because, it's a futile thing. You can't control your opponent. You can't control who you're getting matched up against and how well they do in the future. So, if there were a change to be made, I would hopefully, tie it more to record. But, just speaking of all X2s, specifically for U.S. Nationals and Worlds, we had all the X2s at minimum move on to day 2 of U.S. National, or day 2 of that tournament, and then into Top Cut as well, which is great. And I think that's something that is easily feasible and probably would be really accepted across the community, that regionals have this tournament structure as well. Now I'm not saying we have to have a day 1 and day 2 Swiss, but you can just have Swiss, have all your X2s move on to Top Cut, and then play out your bracket from there. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, I'm definitely I'm in favor of a more tiered system like that for regionals if they're going to be worth more like they're supposed to be. Like I'm all for keeping resistance from designing too many results as long as it's like the most convenient way possible.
That's a good point you bring up, that regionals are going to probably be a lot bigger this year, considering the prize payout for them was increased by a whole lot. And so I would hope that resistance doesn't end up being a huge factor with so much more on the line than any previous year. So I agree with you, Steven. I think that would be a much appreciated format for regionals moving forward, having all X and 2s cut into whatever, like a 12-man bracket or whatever. Even then, Resistance will decide who gets certain buys, but I would hope that the payouts would be the same for everyone who makes it into the top bracket, the top cut bracket, and not for those people like all the way down to like if we had a top 12 cut and top 16. Because that's something else that like I didn't touch on from Nationals earlier, but like those people that made it into the top 12 at Nationals and lost in that first round, they got the same thing as those people that bubbled into top 16 and didn't even play a game.
That's something that shouldn't really be. Doesn't seem right, does it?
No, because like those people that were 3-3 and didn't make it into the bracket, they didn't have to play one more game. Versus those people that were X and 2 and just managed to lose in that first round of the cut, they got the same thing as a select few of people that bubbled in. It just doesn't seem right, and so I think we should have X and 2s all the way down to regional levels at the very least.
Yeah, and I think that's something everyone would appreciate. Not having to worry about resistance down to that kind of level. There are a few concerns, such as the attendance level, because you could get a really small regional with maybe only 5 rounds. Do you really want 3 and 2s cutting?
It happened before in 2009. Well, I mean, not really, but it was good enough for top 8 because it was
wow
for Worlds 2009. Yeah, there were a few people the top cut for that was like absurdly small, but like prize support went down to top 8, and that was still enough for like a custom 3DS.
A custom 3DS for going 3 and 2. That's kind of crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
Why don't we get custom 3DSs anymore? Come on. All right, was it even a custom 3DS then, Kamaal, or was it a custom?
I think it's because TPCI got in kind of hot water from having it made through a third party, and then in 2010 they tried to have it done through Nintendo themselves, but after that they kind of just like scrapped the whole idea because it was too much trouble.
But they weren't 3DSs.
Regular
DSIs.
DSIs, yeah, sorry. DSIs.
That's what I meant to clarify, yeah.
It's been a while.
But those are probably really cool.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah, what's also cool is only a select few people have them too. So, very, very rare item.
One thing that's interesting that I wanted to talk about, since it is less than a month until regionals start, until we have our first regional in Arizona, we still haven't actually heard about what the new season format is going to follow. Like, what are CP payouts? What are, are we still going to be playing 2016? That's something else we wanted to talk about, is playing 2016 in the 2017 format, but that's a different topic. But what if, we have these events coming up, and we still don't know what kind of format we're going to be playing, what kind of CP is on the line. It's crazy to think that it's so close, and we still just don't know anything. In the past, TPCI has definitely not had the most timely announcements. They've delayed and delayed and delayed, and so here we are again in that same situation, and that's something that I think could be improved in the future, is having things announced earlier.
Yeah, I definitely agree that they've been kind of dropping the ball on announcing things in a timely manner, but like at the same time, you kind of have to consider where they're coming from. They used to be like really good at communicating with the players, but just this whole season, like the community has been how do I say it? Unwelcoming. I want to say whiny. Strong words,
yeah,
but
whiny could be fitting.
Like you,
strong words.
you have all these players just like bugging him throughout the season about Smeargle. It's like, if I were Chris Brown, I wouldn't want to be on Twitter that much either, to let people know what's up on the down low. And it's especially bad when it's like top players doing it. It's like the people they follow they follow the pattern. It's like you have a whole community just like it's just like whining. It's a real shame because it makes us look so bad, and it leads now because you have like when stuff like that happens, you have top level players discouraging mid level players like discouraging lower level players, and like when the lower level players stop showing up, that's why we get these really small regionals. Like
yeah,
certainly our poor attendance was because of the format, but a lot of it had to do with the community too. Like, we really need to stop shooting ourselves in the foot here.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. Community, we could definitely do things in a bit of a more professional manner. And, you mentioned Smeargle just earlier, and, I'm glad that TPCI put their foot down and just said, hey, we're not changing the format for you guys. We didn't see anything incredibly significant to change it. And, I kind of still wish that we didn't have Smeargle and Dark Void and Moody and everything, but I'm glad they didn't, conform to what we wanted. They are saying, this is the format, this is what you guys are going to get. We're not going to be influenced by just a few players, making complaints towards us.
Yeah.
I think that kind of relates to people, like when that was happening, when people were thinking Smeargle might get banned. One thing that a lot of people were afraid of was the slippery slope. If we are all whining and yelling for Smeargle to be banned and just complaining and begging for it to be banned, if it actually does get banned, then people are going to start complaining and like asking for more things to get banned and stuff like that. It's something that maybe not everyone agrees with. Maybe that wouldn't happen, but it's certainly something to think about. Is if they do listen to us once like that and ban something that we've been asking for, then in the future we're gonna have that to go back on and say like, well, I'm gonna ask for the Mega Kangaskhan to get banned because they banned Smeargle or they banned Dark Void or something like that in the past, and I have now. It gives you kind of a right to complain.
Yeah, there's no going back after you've done that, but it definitely put TPCI between a rock and a hard place. And they chose the most consistent option, and the community just really wasn't going along. And it's like it got to like some really just awful things where you have like lower level players like just trying to earnestly learn how to play the game, and mid-level players telling them wait till 2017. It's like it's a disgrace. Like it really just it's not a good look. Like we definitely need to be better about that in 2017. Like we gotta take the format like as it is. Like as much as I tend to rail against 2014 in particular, I was part of the group that really didn't like that format. But like, it is what it is. You gotta have the gumption to stick it out, or at least let the people who do like it have their fun.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good point. That you should just if you want the game to grow, you shouldn't bash it, no matter how you feel about it. And you started to talk about 2014 and 2017 there, and I guess that's another topic that we kind of wanted to talk about, was how there's kind of a pattern to the style of formats that we play every year. Steven, do you want to kind of like describe that pattern and what we're expecting for the 2017 season?
So our first official season of VGC was in 2009. It was in the 4th gen, pretty much a national Pokedex. There were a few restrictions with, the leveling and stuff. So like things like Tyranitar and Dragonite couldn't be allowed, or weren't allowed because they evolved past level 50. Some other Pokemon were caught higher, etc. But in terms of the pattern, I've always seen it as we've had national decks, then a wild card format going to a regional decks, and just you follow the pattern 2009 to 10, 11, 12, 13. It goes national decks, wild card, regional decks. Every generation, every time a new game comes out for a new generation, we always get a regional decks, and usually that follows with a national decks, and then some kind of format after that that's kind of been a wild card. In 2013, which would be the wild card format for the 5th gen, it just happened to be national decks plus the black 2, white 2 editions. So, with that being said, with Sun and Moon coming out in just a few months, and us trying to figure out, hey, what's the 2017 format? What's it going to be? It seems pretty predictable that it would just end up being a regional Pokedex of the Alola region.
Yeah, that's the most likely call there. Although, like, the fact that there's different kinds. Like in Gen 5, you had like mostly it was like the early Unova only could only use Pokemon that were in Gen 5, and there's formats like the 2014 one where there were a mix of Pokemon from different generations, and it's looking to be the same this time. Because we've seen Pokemon like Kangaskhan and Salamence in the trailers. It's worth expecting them to show up in the new Dex format. No word on whether or not they can Mega Evolve this time.
Yes, that's another interesting aspect. But I think you bring up a good point. Like I remember watching some of the Sun and Moon gameplay at E3, and one of the first wild Pokemon they encountered was like a Lediba, and so you'd expect this to be more like the 2014 regional Dex, where you have all these new Pokemon from Sun and Moon, and then a bunch of other ones, not all of them, but a bunch of other ones from the previous games. Whereas in 2011, it was limited to just the Pokemon in Black and White, because that's what you found through normal gameplay, was just the 150 Pokemon or so released in the Unova Dex. And so 2011 was a lot more restrictive than 2014, but 2014 was still a bit more restrictive. We'll see how Alola turns out. I know you, Kamaal, are not a fan of these restricted decks typically.
I am definitely not. I haven't typically had much luck in either of the past two, and although I'd like to think I've become a stronger player, like it depends a whole lot on which Pokemon they allow for the new decks, because like none of the ones they had in 2011 or 2014 really benefited me, because I tend to be a more defensive player, and those were two of the most offensive formats we've ever had. So it could really go either way, kind of. It depends on what Game Freak decides they want the pace of their imaginary new format to look like.
Yeah.
The fact that Snorlax is hopefully taking a bigger role as well, because I love Snorlax.
And I know Steven's a big fan of Snorlax too.
I love Snorlax too. I'm in that camp with you too, Kamaal, that I don't like seeing formats where we're restricted with the number of Pokemon we can actually use. So like those regional Pokedexes, I'm not a fan. I like having a format as open as possible for people to find whatever solutions they want to use. And, there isn't the issue of people not being able to use their favorite Pokemon. But, yeah, I'd kind of be shocked if we got anything else for 2017.
It seems like Kamaal is like looking good because he's got the West Coast Worlds, and he's already got his invite clinched, but then it's the regional decks, and those are just very poor formats for Kamaal, so
yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of a toss-up. I really don't know what's going to happen with Kamaal's season this year.
It could really go either way. Like, I used to think like I could only qualify in odd number years, but 2016 kind of threw a wrench in that. 2015 and 2016 both did. So who knows what'll happen in 2017, given like all of that and the fact that it's new decks.
Patterns are just off the table.
Yeah.
This is a weird year this year. But those are our predictions for the 2017 format. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about in terms of changes we saw this season, changes you would want to see for next season?
Well, I think one thing that's kind of interesting and that we haven't got to see it yet, and I know it's one thing that you've been hoping for forever, and it's since we don't really know what format we're playing for the fall yet. We imagine we'll be playing Sun and Moon once January rolls around, But until then, are we going to continue to play the 2016 format, or are we going to play something entirely different? We don't really know.
Yeah, there could stand to be a really big conflict between the people who really just are tired of 2016, don't want to play, and the people who don't mind it enough to get there to take advantage of the assumably much larger prize pool. It's like a whole that's a lot of money for not a whole lot of players. So it's going to be interesting to see how regional attendance turns out for the remainder of this 2016 season.
Another interesting aspect is, like I mentioned, that some people would want a single format played for the entirety of a season and not having part of it be in the past year's format. Like the Worlds invites that all three of us obtained this year, we got part of the championship points from playing in the 2015 format, which is just a weird concept because you shouldn't be earning your 2016 Worlds invite playing in the 2015 format. However, I feel like we're kind of stuck in this loop because of the release dates of the games. You know, Worlds is held at the end of summer in August, but the games are released in November. So it seems like the two options are either to... Well, I guess there's like three options. We either move the date of Worlds to sometime just before November when the games come out. We somehow convince Game Freak to release the games right after Worlds. Or we just don't play in the fall. There are just no fall tournaments, and we just wait until the 2017 season starts with the new year when Sun and Moon's out. It seems like we're kind of stuck. What do you guys think?
I think we are stuck. There's no way they're moving Worlds out of summer, and we're kind of constrained to Game Freak's release dates with the Pokemon games, and I think it is pretty clear that for one calendar year is going to be one format for that season. So I don't really see there's that much confusion for 2016. It would be nice to get confirmation for the rest of the fall, but I think it's pretty clear in the rules. We've had this for 4 years now, but I don't really see Worlds moving timing wise. So unfortunately, this is something that we're stuck with. We just have to deal with it and just brace ourselves every year for this kind of thing. Because I would like to see a change, though. I'd rather see the metagame fully developed for a year from beginning to end, where Worlds is the actual end. Like we used to have in older formats, where the seasons were technically really only 4 months or so, and you have that metagame from, May to August. And then we moved on to whatever was next.
Yeah, like it used to be where we would they would announce the format like sometime in January, and like we just practice stuff off and on from like January to April, and then like from then on were the real tournaments. And it's like putting it all together it's still only like 8 months for an entire format, and that's it. It would be good if they could expand that, like you said, throughout the whole season, where it would go from say August to August. But there's still the limitations of like they can't really afford to move Worlds because it's already in a decently convenient time slot where that's just before people start to go back to school, and it's unclear how much they can shift the release of the new games based around Nintendo's other IPs. So we're locked in there too a bit. So in all, we mostly kind of have to just work with what we have there.
Right, and like we mentioned earlier, rather than, continually keep demanding change, in a negative way, just be a bit more gracious with what we have already. We used to live in a world where we had single game, single elimination, no Swiss, then we finally moved to that. Now we finally moved to best of 3 this year. Things keep on getting better.
Yeah, and hopefully things continue to improve as we move to the 2017 season. We've already seen a lot of positive announcements, like the increased prize support and the increase in best of 3, over the course of this year. And yeah, it's shaping up to be a pretty good season. We just have to see how the rest of it plays out once they make a couple more announcements.
Yeah, it's definitely getting better. little bumpy along the way, but it's stuff like we could all stand to keep along with the ride, and like we're slowly getting it together, slowly but surely.
So overall, we saw the introduction of like the championship bar and mid-seasons. Those were some really good changes. Streaming, and then a lot of best of 3 play, and the change for Worlds and Nationals, having X and 2s make it into the cut to remove resistance. Those were a lot of positive changes for this season. And so hopefully going forward, it just keeps going and we keep seeing more and more positive changes to just make this the best possible game it could be.
Yeah, I think you were pretty spot on. Like the most recent changes definitely were direct advantage to what we've been asking for all along. So like it's going to be interesting to see what we can do with what we've got.
Yep, we've seen many great changes over the course of the season. Hopefully still more improvements to come. And, unfortunately we didn't get to cover everything we wanted to talk about, but maybe we'll get that at another time. But we're already going actually pretty long here. So I just wanted to thank Kamaal for being on this show. We really appreciate having you here and having your input.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I had fun.
Kamal's on social media. If people wanted to follow you on, say, Twitter, where could people do that?
At Phonic Frog, FONICFROG, Twitter. I'm not on Twitch, but keep your eyes peeled because, like, come November, I've got a little something in the works there.
That sounds very exciting. So, people, go follow him. He'll have a surprise, maybe.
We'll see where that goes.
And, all right. So, Alex, people can follow you on Twitter at
Lexicon VGC. And Steven, how about yourself?
People can follow me at Super Morioka. But that's the end of our show. We hope you guys learned something important from the season. Hopefully got your minds thinking about, what could I do personally to help improve the VGC community, just the season in general. And we'll see you guys next time for the next show of the Hyper Voice. Again, just thank you to Alex and Kamaal for being on.
Yep, thank you. See you around.
Bye, guys.